Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me this morning for our webinar on customer service effects on social media. My name is Kristy Bailey. I'm a presenter and an advisor for Business Station as part of the Digital Solutions Commonwealth Government Program. So today, what we're going to talk about is a range of things that are both customer service related, but also linking that into social media. The idea is very much that it is interactive, or as interactive as you'd like to make it. So please feel free to use either the chat or the Q&A functionality to ask questions at any time. Go ahead and do that, and I'll also stay on for a few minutes at the end and answer any questions at that point as well. So what we're going to look at firstly is really the suggestion that customer service is a single interaction, whereas customer experience incorporates that entire customer journey. So we're going to look at the customer journey itself, and we'll talk about understanding that, that whole customer experience process and the dimensions of customer service. Obviously that links into first impressions, as well as handling complaints effectively and making sure that that translates into positivity online, and upselling strategies as well. And all of those things really improve the overall customer experience, which, as we know, has a direct impact on social media. We'll then talk about social media itself and make that critical link between each customer interaction and socials. Now, throughout the webinar, you will discover how important customer interactions are for your online presence. And then we'll talk a little bit about what you can actually do to generate positive word of mouth from each and every customer as well. So lots to get through. We'll start by talking a little bit about customer experience management. So customer service, and when you think of customer service, it really is a single touch point with a brand at a moment that a customer's in front of you or transacting, whereas a customer experience, or that overall customer experience, impacts feelings and emotion and encompasses that entire customer journey. So I think that customer experience is defined by the interactions and experiences that your customer has with your business throughout this entire journey. And it really does start at the first point of contact. And it goes right through to that customer potentially then being a happy and a loyal customer. So it's a big job at hand when you look at customer experience management, but your job is really to understand that process, as I mentioned. And the critical link between each customer interaction, and for the purposes of today, looking at how social media fits into that. So rather than customer service sitting alone, you would need to consider your job at hand to be that customer experience management. So a real overarching look at the whole process. Customer experience, I believe, has to be a top priority to businesses. And the reason, well, there's many reasons, but the biggest reason is that companies that focus on customer experience tend to reduce churn or turnover of customers and increase their revenues. And that obviously leads to higher profits, which is generally, or most businesses' ultimate goal. Now, with your customer experience management, you do need to have a 360-degree view of your customers. It also helps to have integrated and up-to-date data on them so that you can really understand who they are. You can create your own customer journey map. And then you can work on ways that they can develop an emotional connection to your brand. In saying that, you also have to have a mechanism to capture their feedback and to track their satisfaction as well. So implementing a social media strategy in your customer service model will give you that chance to communicate with customers, and you do so at a level that makes sure that they feel part of your story, and it really encourages them to become advocates or to recommend your brand to other people. Now, an interesting stat is that about 1 in 3 customers will leave a brand after just one bad experience. So think about that. This might be somebody that comes to you regularly, a regular client, and they have that one slightly off experience and they're gone. So we just can't afford to lose people like that. Customers that rate companies with a high customer experience score, like a 10 out of 10, are said to spend more as well. So they'll increase the amount that they spend, whether that's through regular purchases or actually increasing amount that they spend at each individual purchase, excuse me. So keep that in mind. Another couple of great reasons to really work on the customer service side of things. All right, so let's look at the actual customer journey. Now, this can vary business to business, and it really depends on the nature of your business, but this particular journey map that I've got on the screen will give you an idea of what that journey may look like. So to map the journey for your own business, I would think about and visualize each and every touch point that you have with your future and with your current clients. Really think about each step of the interaction, starting with that initial step when the customer first discovers your product or service. Keep in mind that that is most likely going to be online. So think about that. That exercise really helps you to take off your company hat and sort of step into the customer's shoes. And see the business from the customer's experience or from their perspective. So you would, and the recommendation would be to map out the journey before you work out what the experience should be like at each stage of the journey. So, you've got to know what the journey is before you start planning what's going to happen at each point. Now, just to talk through the journey itself, it typically starts with awareness and consideration. So the first 2 points that you see there. Now, they are the crucial points to adding people into your sales funnel. Customers are, at this point, doing a bit of research. They're reading reviews and testimonials. They're comparing their experience with you to their experience with other companies. So they might be, having a look at your competitors and then seeing how they feel about what they're seeing with you versus what they're seeing with their competitors. So a quick response time here makes a really good first impression. So think about a customer that's just found your product, and perhaps that's been through advertising or they've come through to your website. It looks like your product or even your service will meet their needs and solve that key problem that they're trying to solve, but they've got a question about it. So they're not quite sure about one of the features. They're going to need a quick response. Otherwise, they might choose a competitor over you. So that stage is really, really crucial that companies are as responsive as possible. Now, the next stage that we look at there is conversion or purchase. So it's listed as purchase on the screen from what you can see there. So that part of the journey is absolutely crucial because this is where the customer relationship is really deepened with your business. So it's also where leads or potential customers, people that are maybe sitting on the fence or comparing you with other companies, will decide that your product is actually the one they want to go with and it's going to be the best fit for their needs. And I say product, but it could be service, obviously. And if they do get to that point where they determine that, yes, it's the best fit for their needs, they'll transact. So buy something, book something, and get to your business or your product or service. So the quicker people can get to that point with the fewer barriers, the better. So what's really important here, when people are ready to purchase, and this is what we talk about a lot when we come to small businesses and working online, is having the ability for people to transact online. So you might typically say, we like people to call because we've got a couple of questions we need to ask them. But if somebody's doing their research in the middle of the night and really just wants to book your service or purchase your product, it's not going to be convenient. So you have to remove those barriers and have your business be bookable or transactable online on some level. So the fewer barriers, the better in that sense. The next stage you've got is retention. So retention is absolutely key. It's not enough to spend all of your marketing energy and your time trying to get new customers and then just leaving them to fend for themselves once they've bought something from you. You have to engage with them and keep them coming back. If your customers stop hearing from you and if you stop helping them get value from your product throughout this life cycle of them being your customer, then you risk making that life cycle a lot shorter. High retention will also help to drive further customer acquisition or new business more organically, really, because you can implement things like referral programs or other incentives for people to leave reviews and tell their story or their experiences with your product or service. But to get customers to share about you, you have to engage with them. So you have to remind them of the value that you offer and those increased benefits that they can get by sharing their experience with other people as well. The next stage is advocacy, or the final stage is advocacy. Now that comes with satisfied customers. 83% of satisfied customers say that they're willing to share or refer to their network of friends and family if they're satisfied. So you want each and every customer to be an advocate and to be sharing their positive experience. because it will then in turn generate higher levels of new business and acquisition. So there's a large component of that sits with social media. Now, keep in mind, customer expectations are very much on the rise. And it's causing companies to constantly reinvent themselves in order to survive and to compete. There is so much availability of multiple products. So the people, as a consumer, we have this unlimited world of wealth and world of information online that we can access, and so many different options. So the presence of online platforms and in particular social media for decision making gives so much control to the customer. They can reach out, they can talk to people about real life experiences about products and services. So their decision making is really largely based on reviews and what other people are saying. So that's a really key thing to keep in mind. All right, now talking about customer needs and expectations, a really key way to improve the customer journey is to truly understand your customers. So you have to remember that not all customers are the same, and therefore they're not all going to need or expect the same things when they're purchasing your products and services. Everyone's going to have different needs and expectations, and that's because they fall into different categories. Now, they might differ through their age, through their social background, their economic background, cultural background. They could have special interests or physical or mental differing abilities from a physical and a mental sense. So to successfully meet the needs and expectations of your particular customers, you have to know them. You have to really get to know who they are and who is your target market. So establishing that really clear picture of who they are, and that requires going well beyond basic demographic information. So yes, age, gender, location are really important, but you need to know even more than that. You want to know behaviors, psychographics, in addition to a range of other things. So we really have to make sure that you're reaching the right buyers, and by having a very, very clear idea of who your ideal target market are. Now, that might not necessarily be who's coming through your doors at the moment. This is who we want to target to purchase your product or service. It is important to recognise then that your ideal customers may have differed from who they have in the past. You can analyse who they are by looking at your existing customer base and making sure that these customers are actually working out for you. Have a look at what sort of things correlate within your current consumer sort of base with repeat purchases. So which market segments tend to become longer term customers and more loyal. So do your research on your own customer base, but also do consumer research as well. So know what the market wants and what the behaviors are. And there's a lot of information out there on consumer behaviour. There's a ton of information through the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and there's a lot of other research databases that you can access to try and look at information that backs up the demand for your product or service. So you have to look at new ways to meet customer needs as well. So once you've identified who your most valuable audience is and what it is that they're actually looking for, your goal should be to continuously find new ways to better meet those needs. So you should never, ever expect your audience to change their expectations to fit your product. Okay, so you're always going to have to be developing your product or service to suit changing consumer needs. I would also recommend developing a very customer-centric culture. So encouraging your employees to keep your customers at the centre of each decision they make is really going to help. So we will expand on customer service shortly, but set very clear standards for your team. So as the team that interacts with your customers the most often, those people within your team will really have a major impact on whether or not your company meets customer expectations. So training or hiring first, and then training an excellent team is absolutely key here. Now, how you track that is really through feedback. So collect regular feedback. You might have your own mechanisms, and this will differ business to business, but social media is one mechanism for collecting feedback. It makes it very easy for us to obtain information on review, by way of reviews and other comments online. So keep that in mind. Another thing I would recommend in terms of meeting and exceeding customer expectations is to scope out your competitors. So see what they're doing, see what their customers are saying about them as well. And you'll find a lot of that information online through their social channels. So keep an eye on that too. All right, so customer service really is at the core of meeting and exceeding your customers' expectations. There are 3 dimensions of customer service, and they do all interlink. So you've got human dimensions, which you'll see there on the screen. Now, this is things like body language, this is the attitudes and how motivated your staff may or may not be. Then you've got business dimensions. This is your processes and procedures. It can even come down to your actual product offering and your staff's knowledge of specific functions of your product or service and how well they deliver that product or service to your customers. Then you've got hidden dimensions. Think here about the things that are going on behind the scenes that you don't really ever want your customers to know about. So how your business should be is like a duck on a lake or a pond. Their legs are going frantic underwater, but everything looks calm and smooth on top. That's how you want your business to come across to your customers as well. So hidden dimensions are those underlying things in a business that could be impacting customer service, and you obviously don't want them to. So it could be things like your business policies and technical issues within the organisation. It could be pressure on staff because of limited staff resources, or the resources that they have, or staffing in general. It could be staff relationships with one another, working relationships, or the level of empowerment that individual staff members have as well. Another key hidden dimension can be staff bringing home problems to work. So you have to be able to identify as a business if those kind of things are happening and address them as quickly as possible. Also, very important to keep in mind that customers do have hidden dimensions that can impact how they're receiving your product or service, and therefore how they interact with your staff. Now, this can be really difficult because you might get a customer come in that's completely unreasonable, treating everybody badly, but something may have happened in their day that has made them, through no fault of your business, but made them very difficult to please. So it's important that all staff, whether it's yourself or your frontline staff, are aware that there are these dimensions of customer service that will affect the product and service that they're giving, and try to align those 3 dimensions. And that if you can align them all, that will equate to excellent customer service. So just a reminder that customer service is absolutely crucial, and understanding those elements is a really key thing in how things are going to be perceived about your business online. Good customer service is absolutely critical to success in all businesses. It can really elevate you well above your competition, and that's a key thing. You could have a business down the road that offers exactly the same product or service. Pricing could be very similar as well, but what is going to be the difference is how the customers are treated and what your level of customer service is. So always use the mantra of under promise and over deliver, because it will really improve that customer retention rate as well. Now, keep in mind that if customers are frustrated with the service they receive, they are obviously more likely to rate their service poorly, and that's going to go on to social media. So that's going to go on to Google reviews. It might go on to Facebook. It could be Yelp, Zomato, there's TripAdvisor. There's tons of different review sites. And that will really differ depending on what your industry is as well. So there's a lot of industry specific review sites. So have a look at your reviews online. Have a look what's being said at the moment, and make sure that you're across them. Now, also keep in mind that people can review you and set up pages on any of the review sites for your business, even if you don't take control of those as a business. So we'll talk about this when we get to social media, but it is really important to make sure that you understand exactly what's being said online about you and even about your competitors. I think there's some really valuable information in there. All right, so in terms of how you actually improve customer service to make sure that you have that good retention rate and ultimately have these people that become brand advocates, Well, there's a few key areas that we're going to go over, but we'll start with first impressions. First impressions are the key component of this customer journey that we've been speaking about. It's so important that you get it right, because each and every person interacts with a business for that same reason, and that's to solve a need or want and to make sure they feel good doing it. So the first few seconds, in a physical sense, first impressions are made within the first 3 to 7 seconds of initial meeting. You then have a look at that from an online perspective. How quickly do you judge the homepage of a website? So let's say you've done a search online, a result has been produced by a search engine, you click on a link, you know that there's another 100 pages of results. So you're going to make a decision within a couple of seconds as to whether or not this business meets your needs. And that's going to purely be based on a snapshot of the homepage of their website. So first impressions on a website are absolutely crucial. You only have to look at a bounce rate in your analytics or your web stats to know that, and bounce rates normally sit around 40% or so, sometimes higher. How many people will go off a site after that first impression on your homepage? In a physical sense, there are many factors that form a first impression. First of all, your environment or your venue sort of presentation. Now, that can include anything from smell to temperature to music to the overall atmosphere that you've created. And it's so important that you keep it consistent with the brand that you're trying to create. Now, the bigger retail outlets do this very well. So you look at, a younger demographic, a clothing store, they'll have younger people in there. They will have loud music. It'll be quite cluttered and there'll be a lot going on. Whereas other stores will completely differ. A furniture store, there's a lot more room to walk around. It's a lot quieter. And so it really is created based on who your target market is. You want your target market to feel completely comfortable when they walk through your doors. So that environment and venue is really important. Tied into that, and I did quickly touch on it, but is your own staff, your staff, I should say, personal image. So that's a really, really crucial thing as well. Making sure that it aligns with the type of image that your customers want to see and those similar values. Tied into that directly is how you speak. So your local language. Do you use slang? Is it appropriate to use slang? You think if you've got an international market, slang doesn't translate a lot of the time. So it's really important that your staff are trained to speak appropriately in that sense as well. Also, some very basic things that I'm sure you all know, but things like body language are really important, whether or not you're smiling and how that's conveyed to customers. Even things like eye contact are absolutely crucial. Now, just on eye contact, there's a very interesting concept that Disney actually have, which is the 15 and 10 rule. Now, with the 15 and 10 rule, their concept is that if you are within 15 foot, which is about 4.5 meters, Disney employees have to acknowledge their customers at first with a smile. So eye contact, smile. If a customer is then within 10 feet or 3.5 meters, they have to smile and verbally acknowledge the customer. So hi, I'll be with you in a second, or hi, how can I help you, or welcome, or something like that. So acknowledgement is absolutely crucial in making someone feel good and giving them that really lasting first impression. So that acknowledgement, it really shows and directly ties into your attitude and potentially even empathy that you're showing the customer. It could be, oh, come in, the weather's bad out there, or something along those lines, that welcoming, understanding what they're going through. They could have a million bags and, there's some kind of comment about that. So having that attitude that appeals to your customers and showing empathy at that first impression stage is absolutely crucial as well. So while it sounds straightforward, and yes, we all know first impressions are really important, there's many, many factors to it. So have a look at those factors and consider them for your business. Complaint handling is another element. Virtually everyone will have to deal with customer complaints at some point in their career or in their business world. It could be something as simple as getting an order slightly wrong, or it could be a major business error that you're needing to address. But whatever it is, no matter how big or small, how you handle that complaint makes all the difference. So I like to look at this LEARN format, which is an acronym for listen, empathize, apologize, react, and notify. So listening is listening to the customer's concern without interrupting. The empathy side of things is being sympathetic, to the fact that something's gone wrong or they're unhappy. You understand what they're going through, very sorry that it's happened, sort of understanding that they must be frustrated, and then the apology, if appropriate, ties into that. Now, sometimes if we go back to the hidden dimensions, sometimes people will come to you with hidden dimensions, and it could be that they're having a bad day. So a complaint could come as a result of that, and you're not really at fault, but you need to address it anyway. It's very important that you listen, that you show empathy, and that you do apologize, perhaps even apologizing for how the person's feeling, as opposed to apologizing for doing something wrong. If something genuinely, hasn't really been done wrong, but obviously apologizing if it is a company error. The react part is evaluating different solutions. So what can we do? How can we make this better? And that will happen sometimes you will need to escalate, or your staff might need to escalate that to somebody more senior, or they might, understand that they can evaluate some solutions themselves. Then the notify and follow up stage is basically after you offer and provide a solution. It's really important to personally check with that person to make sure that they're satisfied. Did it actually make things okay? Sometimes at that point, they're even more angry because the second option or the solution that you came up with didn't work either. So if you don't do the follow-up at that point, you could actually inflame the entire situation. So that's really important to understand as well. There are a few reasons that we don't handle complaints well, mostly because we're too busy. So something's going on, too busy to deal with, or complaints happen as a result of being too busy in small business as well. Other things that pop up are being defensive or trying too quickly to come up with a solution. In small business, because we are very close to our product or service, often family owned or run or owner operator type scenarios, that defensiveness, I see it all the time online, where, people are openly saying that didn't happen or this isn't the case type thing. That's never going to work when someone's making a complaint. So even on the defensive side, just going, yeah, trying to get the solution quickly without truly going through that learn process and really thinking carefully about each and every part of what the complaint is. Sometimes staff, if they're not adequately trained, they can be intimidated by the complaint, and therefore they don't handle it very well. Otherwise, and again, through lack of procedures or a procedure breakdown, they could be unsure of their level of empowerment. So at what point can they actually solve this problem and offer a solution, or at what point do they need to escalate that to someone more senior? So it's really important that staff do understand that. So that's the complaint side of things. I do hope that it doesn't happen within your business, but chances are it will. We all come across complaints rightly or wrongly. But on a more positive note, another way to really improve customer service, but also improve your revenues, is through suggestive selling. Now, suggestive selling is a sales technique where an employee will ask a customer if they want to include some kind of additional purchase, or even recommend an alternative product, which is more of an upsell that might suit the client. So suggestive selling is predominantly used to increase the purchase amount of the client, and therefore it improves the revenues of the business. So that's a huge benefit for it. But it also is fantastic for customer service. Now, the reason that's so good for customer service is that the customer feels like you understand them enough to be able to recommend something. So just to expand on that a little bit further, how do you do it? Well, you have to incorporate a feature and a benefit. So a feature is something about the product or service. The benefit is what it means for the customer. So think about what you can offer that links the two. So what's in it for the customer? In this, your greeting is a really key way to find out what the customer really wants. So what feature can you give them based on what you've learned about them in that initial greeting? So open-ended questions are fantastic. They are really designed to encourage full and meaningful answer. You can use your own subject knowledge or feelings to really draw out information as well and engage with people. You want to avoid the dreaded no word. So an open-ended question is the opposite of a closed-ended question. So a closed-ended question is wanting basically a single word response, which is not what you want. So things like, tell me what you had in mind, or what's the occasion. If someone's, looking for vouchers or celebrating something, that can lead to upselling as well. You might be, talking to them about, how has your day been? What have you been up to today? And those kind of things will really help you understand what the customer wants. Now, I see this a lot in hospitality. So one of my big things is when you've been out for dinner, for example, and someone that's a wait person asks you if you want to see the dessert menu. Yes or no? Do you want to see the dessert menu? I always say no, because, moral or, emotionally, I probably don't want to eat dessert. I'm full. I've had 2 courses already. Whereas if that wait person was to just bring you the dessert menu and tell you what's amazing, and ask if, have you tried our sticky date pudding or whatever it might be, then that's really opening conversation and giving more of an opportunity for them to sell. They haven't asked for that closed-ended question, that one word response. So suggestive selling and the ability to incorporate conversation with the customer service person, whoever's the salesperson, sharing their own experiences, really does improve customer service. But it also, so that in turn leads to a more positive experience, which is highly likely to translate into that higher retention, stronger advocacy, online word of mouth stuff. But it increases your revenues as well. So think about that. So not only are you looking at ways to increase your revenues, which will generate more profit for you essentially, but it's also generating this positive word of mouth. There's great sentiment from your customers, and a lot of that's going to go online as well. So lots of benefits to suggestive selling. Now, social media. So thinking about your customer journey, how does that journey fit in and relate to the social media space? So what is social media? Well, realistically, it's any website or application that enables users to create and share content or to participate in some kind of social sort of networking. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, there's tons of social sharing sites. Now, social media from a business perspective is not just about acquiring new customers and messaging. So it's not just question and answer and acquisition. It's really about engagement and building a relationship, but it also directly impacts your SEO, so your search engine optimization, so how well you rank in search terms. But I'll expand more on that in just a minute. Before I do, just have a look at why it's so important for us. 88% of people are influenced by reviews and online comments. So think about that. That's a big statistic. So social pressure can tarnish your branding as quickly as you grow it. You have to keep in mind, fingertips are always on the move. So people could be waiting in line and disgruntled about service that's taking too long. They can hop on Facebook and quickly let people know, or whether or not they've enjoyed their experience with your service. They can review on different sites. So they could be blogging on other sites about other products they've purchased. So social media has played such a key role in this power shift to your customers. So think about how hugely or immensely connected the world's become since the introduction of social media. If people have had a bad experience, they absolutely want to review it and share it online. And similarly, if they want to praise a business on, something that's going on, they can also reach out to that business. So the risks of social media can greatly affect your reputation, but it can also greatly improve your reputation as well if it's harnessed well. So that's why we want to really focus on that positive impact that social media can have. So your job is to look at where social interactions fit into your customer journey, and then make sure that you're maximizing your efforts in each part of that to be part of any conversations that are going on, listening to the feedback from your customers at that same time. So some tips for that are, First of all, to reap the benefits of two-way brand engagement. So customers enjoy it when businesses share information. So it could be tips, it could be ideas, it could be humorous banter across social media. So customers will love to send you a message, but they also want a response as well. So that two-way engagement on social media is such a great way to build brand loyalty and to help give your company really its own voice and its own sort of personality. Now, I would also think of social media as another contact point. So it's an extension of your contact info. Customers today expect a response to their comments or concerns within hours, not days. So social media lets people really effortlessly reach out to you without getting stuck on hold or even having to find your phone number or wait for an email response. So they don't want to go through a lot of hassle to get to you, but they do want that response. So make sure that you are really responsive from a contact perspective as well. Now, another tip is to nip complaints in the bud really quickly and easily. So if you avoid social media, it's not going to stop customers from speaking up if they've got some kind of complaint. If you've got a presence on social channels, at least you're going to know about any issues that arise and you can address them really promptly and get ahead of situations. Now, again, another statistic is that 70% of brands respond to customers within the first few hours of something being posted. So if you're not there to respond, then your competitors might be there to pick up a bit of the slack, or somebody else might jump on. And I've seen this happen, you know, in a case where someone's gone on to a channel's Facebook page to leave some constructive feedback, essentially a complaint. The brand wasn't there to answer because maybe they didn't have notifications set up, or maybe, you know, the social media person wasn't in that day, or whatever that looked like. But a whole lot of other people got on and started making comments. And that particular scenario went quite viral. So it ended up, you know, really being a lot bigger than it should have been. So make sure that you have, you know, immediate access to your socials and you've got those alerts and notifications set up. And another thing about the positive impact that social media has on your customer service is that it really allows you to spot trends on or before they actually are occurring. So keep your ear to the ground and pay really close attention to what customers are talking about. And that will really help you spot trends. So you've got a lot of analytics on your own pages. So that's really important, but you can monitor what's being said about you. You can have a look at your competitors, you can follow different hashtags and get a head start on providing customers what they want, essentially. Now, keep in mind that social media gives another access point to your customers, which I did touch on earlier. It shouldn't always be an advertising opportunity. It's not the right medium for a sales campaign. So yeah, so it's fine to share the odd offer or deal, but make sure that you are also, you know, providing information to them, tips, hints, things that will add value to their day about your product or service, or help them use your product or service or want to use it. So keep that in mind. And I would always look, when you're looking at social posting, I would look at the 80-20 rule. So 80% information, tips, hints, and useful info, and then 20% sales. So yeah, having a look at that sort of basis. Now, if you want to increase sales through social media activities, you have to be prepared to use that service for general customer service and customer engagement as well. So sales will come as a result of that too. Now, I did touch on this earlier, but social media sends signals that can really positively impact your search engine optimization or how well you rank in key searches. So not only do social media interactions affect what you and your customer sees and that relationship that you can have with your customers, but like I said, it impacts your SEO as well. So because a lot of sharing now takes place on your social media platforms, Google and other search engines have factored in social signals. Now, this is your web page's collective shares, likes, comments, so that overall social media visibility as perceived by a search engine. Now, those activities and what's occurring online contribute to your organic search ranking. And it's really seen as another form of citation or authority, similar to backlinks for your website. So if you've got a strategy that's designed to increase your social media engagement, it will also have a very positive SEO impact for you. So that's another fantastic reason to really harness and engage on social media. for your business. So if you're looking, at an SEO strategy, social media is should be a big part of that, in addition to all of the usual SEO tactics, I should say. Now, in terms of increasing social signals, first and foremost, strong content is absolutely key. Now, this valuable content, your content should be valuable, it should be entertaining, it should be informative, and it should, if it's all of those things, it will really sort of, I guess, attract a more positive interaction than any blatant or sort of spammy advertising. So some tried and true sort of strategies for really increasing your social signals are to post regularly. Obviously, keeping your brand at the top of news feeds is always going to do well, but make sure you go for quality, not quantity. So engagement is what you're after. Engagement's what's going to work for the people, and engagement's what is going to help with your social signals. So you don't want to post, you don't want to have a policy where you have to post 3 times a week, and then you're sitting there going, I don't have anything to post, so I'll just post this, average photo. It's going to get no interaction, and it can actually do damage for your pages. People might start to unfollow you because they're not interested in the content that you're posting, or there's algorithms that sit behind how much engagement you get. If you don't get any engagement on a particular post, the next time you post, it might be shown to fewer people. So that can actually do you damage. So quality, not quantity, but try and keep your posting regular. Images are really important, and posting images greatly increases the interaction rates on all social media types. So make sure that you've got quality images that you're using for your content. Listening is really important, and hearing what people are saying about your brand and then responding to that feedback or that critique in a constructive and a positive way is really important. It might not be critique, or it might be positive, but you still should be responding to that. If people are taking the time to reach out to you because they have something constructive or positive to say, it's really important that you join that conversation. Monitoring social media is crucial as well. Now, there's a lot of free social media marketing apps that allow you to track shares. You can track retweets and likes, or keywords that might be associated with your brand. So monitor what's being said. And I did touch on this earlier, but monitor what's being said by and what interaction your competitors are getting, as well as your own customers. So don't just monitor your own social pages, look at your competitors' pages. Now, I would consider all social platforms, but in saying that, consideration is one thing. What you actually focus your efforts on should only be social media sites that are relevant to your target audience. So keep that in mind. If you've got, a demographic that are absolutely not on Twitter, then you don't have to be on Twitter, but you have to consider and do the research to truly know if that's where your demographic is. So that's just one example, but definitely consider all social platforms, but only produce content for the top social media sites that are relevant to your target audience. That's really, really important. Otherwise, you end up trying to do a bit of everything, which means that you don't do it very well because you're, you don't have enough time. You're trying to produce individual pieces of content for different platforms, and some of them you might not have an audience there at all. So that becomes then, really a waste of everyone's time and effort. All right, so in order to be active on social channels and really encourage that engagement, you have to support social media in your business. Now, the ways that you can do that are firstly to listen. So listen to your customers online and offline. Use tools for social monitoring that track your mentions, competitors, events, that kind of thing. But become a bit of a monitor of social media yourself. Spend time on the social channels that are relevant to your target market so that you understand how people use them. If you've got data, import it and collect it with your normal reporting, but actively track what's going on and understand what's being said online. So that listening is really important. Talking back is also really important. Now, you might talk on social media with pictures, with media releases. You engage with customers through answering questions and asking questions even. You might want to engage with influencers. post blogs and you know, make comments in video and other online communities and social networks. But it's important that you are there talking as well. Now, supporting is crucial too. You need to direct people to your socials where you're going to be listening and talking back to them. So where can they talk to you? You might want to advertise them on, you know, in your store or in your office. You might want to put them on your email signatures on your website. So advertise what your social channels are, communicate them verbally to your guests or your customers, and encourage them to engage with you offline. So you might have someone that's, let's say, you know, going back to the hospitality example, someone that is in your restaurant and is taking a photo of their food. It couldn't hurt to have your wait people say, you know, follow our Instagram or post your image to our Instagram for your chance for it to be featured or something along those lines. So I had a really good example of this the other day. I was out to dinner and we were talking about specials, and he was telling me what the entree specials were for the night. I said, oh, that sounds fantastic. He goes, if you go onto our Instagram channel, we posted some pics of this special this afternoon. So immediately I went onto the Instagram, started following them, then had a look at those pictures. So that's a really great verbal way to get me to engage with their Instagram page. So think about things like that, but support people by directing them to the channels where they can then interact with you. It also gives you content and gives you the ability to listen to what they're saying and talk back to them. Okay, so going back to the customer journey. Now, social media is an essential part of that journey, which we've spoken about. It really allows you to improve your customer service, to engage with your customers, to provide real-time responses to any questions, concerns, or any positive feedback that they might have. And through listening and talking and supporting in that social media space, you'll really enhance the customer advocacy component of the journey, but that will then in turn enhance the brand awareness, and that will mean that you become visible when your customers begin their journey. So it really fits into all stages. So think about the fact that most businesses focus all their efforts on those first 3 stages of the journey, so that awareness, consideration, and the purchase stage. But I think that's a hugely missed opportunity. The last 2 stages, that loyalty and advocacy, will bring you your most high value customers, and those people in a lot of cases will actually send even more business your way. So it will result in new business, but also the retention of them as customers as well, and then becoming advocates. So keep that in mind. This journey is really important. Map it out yourself. Have a look at the components that sit around this kind of journey. You'll see social just sits at the end there towards that advocacy phase. But like I said, it's so important at all stages of the journey. So map yours out and see where it fits in. All right, well, that wraps up our session on customer service effects on social media. I do hope that it makes sense to you, and I hope there's some things that you can take out of it to improve, or at the very least to better understand that connection between what happens face-to-face with your customers and then what happens online, and how the two sort of interact. But I'm going to stay online now and answer any questions that you might have. We have just sort of scratched the surface. So if you want to know more or talk about any other aspect of your business, you can always book a one-on-one appointment as part of the Digital Solutions program. If you're not already a part of the program, for $44, you can get 3 one-on-one sessions with a digital advisor, as well as up to, well, a minimum of 4 hours, but really an unlimited number of webinars and workshops. So it's a fantastic opportunity at a very low cost, as subsidised by the Commonwealth Government. Now, we've just had a question about the presentation slides being shared. Yes, you will get a recording of this webinar in the next couple of days. So you can go back and have a look at some of the things we've spoken about. It will obviously incorporate all the slides as well. So keep an eye out for that. If you have any other questions, shoot them through now. But just before I go, just keep in mind with this program, there is a little bit of eligibility, an eligibility requirement that you have to have an ABN in WA, Queensland or NT, and you should be operating for profit and employ fewer than 20 full-time staff. So that's it from me. Thank you again for joining me today. Thank you for that beautiful comment there. It is my pleasure to share my knowledge and time, and I look forward to hopefully having some kind of interaction with you guys in the future. But if not, please reach out to the team if you've got any questions at all, and have a great day.